collègues,
Dear colleagues, and for a minute of silent prayer or meditation.
veuillons nous asseoir.
Please be seated.
Chers collègues,
Dear colleagues, in accordance with our rules of procedure, I would like to invite the following people to come to the chamber. Her Excellency Madame Maja Gunjovic, President of the National Assembly of Serbia. His Excellency Pedro Roque, President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean. His Excellency Dr. Michel Al-Sulami, President of the Arab Parliament. Her Excellency Madame Baleka Mbete, Speaker of the National Assembly of South Africa. His Excellency Mr. Ali Hassan Badon, Minister of Defense, Minister in charge of relations with the Assembly from the Republic of Djibouti. His Excellency Dr. Arikana Chiomburi, Ambassador, Permanent Representative of the African Union to the United States of America and Canada. Professor Hugues Alessandro Barro Chambrier, former Minister, former Member of the Pan-African Parliament. Honorable Dr. Lahai. Mr. Herman Mashaba, Mayor of Johannesburg. Professor Mohammed Alu Ahai. I would like to greet Professor Carlos Ruiz Miguel, as well as Mrs. Yvonne Boudin Makwa, I also recognize the delegation of Morocco participating in our work as observers. Excellency, President of the National Assembly of Serbia, Excellency, Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of South Africa, Excellency, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces of the Republic of South Africa, Excellency, President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, Excellency, President of the Arab Parliament, Excellency, President of the Legislative Assembly of East Africa, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, speakers of national parliaments, Excellency, Ambassador of the African Union to the United States and Canada, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors accredited to the Republic of South Africa and representatives of international organizations, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Vice Presidents of the Pan-African Parliament, Excellencies, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of the countries of Africa, Mr. Mayor of Johannesburg, Honorable Chairperson of the Regional Caucuses, Honorable Chairpersons of Permanent Committees, Honorable Chairpersons of the Women's Caucus and the Caucus on Youth, Honorable Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. It is a particular pleasure for me to take the floor today to welcome you most warmly to Midrand, and I wish you a pleasant stay in this beautiful city of the Republic of South Africa, the seat of the Pan-African Parliament. I would like to greet His Excellency Madame Majak Konjovic, President of the National Assembly of Serbia, who would like to renew the long-standing friendship that binds our continent to the former Yugoslavia of late Marshal Tito, a friendship marked by reciprocal respect and a shared struggle to liberate Africa. Madam, you are most welcome. I would also like to thank all our special guests for the efforts made in order to be present here and participate in the work of the fourth ordinary session of our Parliament, whose theme is harnessing the demographic dividend through investment in the youth, end of quote. You have faced difficult challenges in your agendas, and you've traveled from far and wide. I also think of all the other challenges related to the travels and to show how committed you are to Africa. In this regard, I would like to most heartfully thank the chairpersons, the speakers of national parliaments, who, despite budget constraints, have availed the necessary funds so that the honourable members of parliament could participate in this session. We would like to greet all our special guests, and we would like to thank them for gracing us with their presence. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the fourth ordinary session of the fourth legislature of the Pan-African Parliament is taking place in a very particular context. That is a continent marked by the negative impact of the global economic crisis affecting the people, the atrocities of terrorism in the Sahel, like Chad and East Africa in particular, with victims day after day, but also marked by internal political crisis within some member states, therefore hampering the functioning of institutions and deteriorating the poverty of our populations, that we are the worthy representatives. The African population is mainly made up of a very vulnerable youth, and due to poverty and the mismatch between education and the true needs in the job market, this youth is therefore exposed to terrorism and migration. In addition, our continent continues to see waves of deaths due to migration, who think that they can find their happiness elsewhere. And therefore, we need to commit to develop our continent. But how? Africa today needs more technicians than philosophers. The concern of Africa today has been taken into account by the great kingdom of Diobele, who's in his famous novel Abin Dugan declared the following: in fact, when African parents decide to send young children to school, they declared that they should go and learn the art of triumphing without reason, end of quote. Well, that is the technique. Now, as for migration, I commend the efforts made by the Mediterranean Parliament and the Pan-African Parliament through a memorandum of understanding signed to wage a joint struggle against migration. We also recognize the efforts and the support that we receive from development partners. Our relation of cooperation and collaboration with the partners of ECOWAS, AELA, the European Parliament, the Parliament of Serbia, considerably contribute to the process of development and entrenchment of the rule of law in Africa. We would like to thank the European Union, German corporation GIZ, for their constant efforts in our activities. I also welcome the collaboration with the EDEA, who very successfully organized for the members of the Pan-African Parliament a parallel event on 5 and 6 May 2017 in the run-up to our session. This was a high-level panel on the new development approaches of governance of natural resources in Africa. We would like to thank South Africa, the host country of our parliament, for the efforts made to enable us to work in a conducive environment. And we note with satisfaction that the country committed to protect the physical integrity of our members by waging a forceful fight against insecurity that seemed to gain ground over the government efforts. In fact, the people who have no law or reason try to spread terror in our delegation. That happened in the past. But today, considerable efforts are made to put these people out of harm's way. South Africa, land of hospitality, provides us a safe reception, and we are thankful. We, as Pan-African members of Parliament gathered here today, we would like to most sincerely thank the authorities of South Africa. First and foremost, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic, and all the Republican institutions that he embodies. Africa, our beautiful continent, only aspires to development to guarantee its stability and its security. And to achieve this, the Pan-African Parliament should play a decisive role by preparing continental laws which, once adopted by the member states, will enable the development of our continent. These laws must also include the areas such as education, the youth employment, youth education, and youth employment, so that they can stay on the continent. Another topic would be the use of our natural resources that need to be locally processed. That is why it's so necessary that we provide vocational training to guarantee our youth jobs. In face of the multifaceted challenges on our continent, we need a holistic approach, because no country alone can take up these challenges. The Pan-African Parliament, welcoming you here today, is the hope of Africa, because its role of integrating the African continent in line with the wishes of the founding fathers of Pan-Africanism. Men and women sitting in this parliament have intellectual capacity to meet the challenges on our continent and to steer Africa towards a common destiny. Therefore, we must have faith in this parliament, enable it to exercise its legislative function. That will be the culmination of a long process of entrenching the rule of law in Africa. It's in this urgent call that our member states should confer legislative powers to our parliament. And it's with this that I would like to conclude. While I wish you all most welcome to this land of the late Nelson Madiba Mandela. Long live Africa, long live the African Union, long live the Pan-African Parliament. I thank you.
Gracias, asante sana. Je déclare ouvert les travaux.
I declare the fourth ordinary session of the Fourth Parliament officially open.
Je donne la parole à
I now give the floor to the clerk to read the item on the order paper.
So the Deputy Minister for Devo is representing the Minister.
We are going. She's where?
He's here.
You can put her in the.
Honorable members, the oaths will be administered in 7 groups. As I read out the list, I ask the groups to come forward to take their oath. I'll start with the country of Botswana. Honorable Honest Buti Billy. Honorable Mrs. Bogolo Joy Kenewendo, and Honorable Mepato Riatile.
L'ordre du jour appelle la.
On our agenda, we have now the oath, the administration of oath of these members. Now, before we move to the administration of oath, I would like to greet the Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa, Mr. Luani Landers. Please be seated in the chamber.
Prestation de serment, les nouveaux membres.
Administration of oath of the new members. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I, Honest Joy Kenewendo, hereby swear, declare that I will perform my functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability, with honor, dignity, in the service of peoples of Africa. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established, and I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God.
Thank you.
From the Republic of Ghana, Honorable Joseph Osei-Ewusu. Honorable Mrs. Cynthia Mamle Morrison. Honorable Mohamed Mubarak Muntaka. Honorable Joseph Yele Shire and Honorable Yao Aful.
Thank you. Just raise your right hand and read.
Okay. I, Mohamed Mubarak Muntaka, hereby swear
I will perform my functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability and with honor and dignity in the service of the people of Africa. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the constitutive acts of the African Union and the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established. I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God. Yes. Hele, sit there.
From Liberia, Honorable Mrs. Julie F. Weir. Raise your right hand.
I, Honorable Judy F. Weir, hereby swear that I will perform my functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability and the honor and dignity of the service of the peoples of Africa. And I will be faithful and bear the true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the constitutive act of the African Union and the protocol of the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament are here has by law established, and I will promote, enhance to the principles of the good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the African Parliament. So helping God.
From Mauritius, Honorable Mrs. Marie-Claire Jean Monte. Honorable Tusiraj Benedin.
I, Honorable Marie-Claire Jeanne Monti, hereby swear that I will perform my functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability and with honor and dignity in the service of the peoples of Africa. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the Protocol of the Treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established, and I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all the objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God.
From Niger, Honorable Ousmane Kouré Jakou.
Moi, Ousmane Kouré Jakou.
I, Ousmane Kouré Jakou, a member of the Pan-African Parliament, hereby swear solemnly declare that I will perform my functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability and with honor and dignity in the service of the peoples of Africa. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established. And I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God. I so affirm.
From the Seychelles, Honorable Mrs. Regina Esperon. Honorable Terence Mondon. Honorable Mrs. Sylvain Lemiel. Honorable Simon Gill.
I, Terence Michel Modon, hereby swear that I will perform my functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability and with honor and dignity in the service of the peoples of Africa. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the Protocol of the Treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established. And I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God.
From Somalia, Honorable Abdulaziz Abdullahi Mohammed.
Thank you. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I, Abdulaziz Abdullahi Muhammad, here swear, solemnly declare that I will perform my functions as a member of Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability, with honor and dignity, in the service of the peoples of Africa. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union, will preserve, protect, defend the constitutive act of the African Union and the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established, and I will promote adherence to the principles of good government, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God.
Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you very much, Clerk. And now, the next item in our agenda. The next item
Messages of solidarity.
Chers collègues,
dear colleagues, the agenda now is on the messages of solidarity. The first message will be delivered by Dr. Arikana Shiomburi, Ambassador and representative of the African Union to the United States of America and Canada. Madam, but the ambassador is also the focal point for the African Union for the diaspora in the United States and Canada. In this capacity, Madam, you have the floor.
Honorable President of the Pan-African Parliament, Rojang Dang Nkodo. Honorable members of the Parliament, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a tremendous honor and privilege to be invited to the Pan-African Parliament in my capacity as the African Union Ambassador to the United States. With me also today, someone who may be well known to you, is Ambassador Bridget T., who is the former US Ambassador to the African Union. Ambassador Bridget T., could you stand up, please? Thank you. I think it was important that I bring him with me today because of the critical times that we are living in today, particularly in the United States. I am most grateful for the rare privilege granted to me to address the plenary of this assembly. I am bringing to you warm greetings from my colleagues, the African ambassadors in the United States, and their commitment to work with you to achieve the vision of our continent, the African Union, and that of building the Africa we want, which is united, prosperous, and a peaceful Africa. Allow me to seize this opportunity to pay a sincere tribute to Honorable Roger Dang. I first met him this January, along with 6 other colleagues, when they had visited the United States to address the issue of sanctions against Sudan. I must say, let me take the opportunity to congratulate him and his delegation for a successful mission to the United States. After they had met with members of Congress on the 4th of January, by January 13th, President Obama did indeed lift the sanctions, economic sanctions on Sudan. Thank you, President, for your leadership. One of the things that were accomplished also during that visit was the beginning of a conversation to do with a possible collaboration between the Pan-African Parliament and the United States Congress. We have some very strong supporters within Congress. That is the Congressional Black Caucus. An MOU has been drafted by Pan-African Parliament, and we are now in the process of circulating it through the Congress with the hope that before the end of the year, we could have a relationship, a working relationship between the Pan-African Parliament and the United States Congress. Mr. President, your visit to Washington, D.C. with your colleagues has allowed us to highlight the notable achievements of our Pan-African Parliament to our U.S. partners in the areas of peace and security, and the leading role of this organ in the promotion of good governance, democracy, and human rights within our beloved continent. The fundamental role of this institution in the ratification and domestication of the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Good Governance is highlighted repeatedly and is appreciated by the US. Again, all this through the leadership of your Honorable President Dogo. It is our firm conviction that a strong partnership between Pan-African Parliament and the United States Congress mutually benefits the political, security, economic, and cultural relations that link the continent with the US. The two institutions, the Pan-African Parliament and the US Congress, share a fundamental common goal, that is of representing our respective citizens and making their voices heard. The African Union is grateful for the strong bipartisan support that Africa and its premier continental institutions, the African Union, have enjoyed over the years in both the executive and legislative branches of the United States government. US-Africa policy is unique in its bipartisanship and has been remarkable continuity in both Congress and the White House on the US agenda in Africa. However, along that note, we do have to underscore that a lot of work is yet to be done. The majority of the positions are not yet filled. A lot of the positions are held by deputies, some of them left over from the Obama administration, who most likely may not be staying long. So the challenge is huge of trying to navigate and create new friends within the Congress, but we are up to the challenge. Distinguished members of Parliament, Your Excellencies, allow me to underscore the key role of parliamentary diplomacy that you conduct with all the honorable members of this body in achieving one of the key aspirations of Agenda 23, the strong Africa that is united and influential global player and partner. You are playing an instrumental role in building partnerships and relationships with international institutions and development partners that complements and reinforces what is done bilaterally, regionally, and continentally. Our continent is representing a dynamic force in the global arena that is becoming ever more important to the rest of the world. Traditional powers and emerging international actors have embraced the continent and reinforced the modalities of their engagement in all areas, particularly diplomatically and economically. Africa remains an enduring interest for the world, and our members of parliament are important actors to maintain and reinforce the momentum achieved by our continental institutions and member states, particularly during the last decade. If you allow me, before I conclude my remarks, I want to underscore one key issue dear to my heart. That is the role and contributions that our diaspora can bring to the development of our continent. They are our untapped potential. As you know very well, the link between Africa and its diaspora in the United States dates back to the first slave ships that crossed the Atlantic, to the struggle against slavery, colonialism, and racism. The African diaspora should and must become an important partner in this journey with us. As the sixth region, in line with the historical roots of the Pan-African movement, since assuming office in December of 2016, I have made one of our key priorities to find the best modus operandi to make this sixth region work and its voice loud and clear. We need to do more to build and strengthen these links between the diaspora and our motherland. We are working on innovative initiatives that will pave the way for our diaspora to participate in the development of Africa as we embark on this road to build the Africa that we want. The Ebola epidemic has taught us important and useful lessons, chief among them the critical importance of building effective primary healthcare systems, which has become a national security and for all member states. The fragility of the health systems is a common feature for the healthcare sector in Africa. We have a huge burden of preventable diseases and treatable healthcare problems where millions suffer and quite often die unnecessarily. This is an area that the diaspora could contribute significantly, but we're counting on all of you to assist us in paving the way for full participation of the diaspora in the development of Africa. I can tell you, as one of them, that the African diaspora is able, ready, and willing to participate in building the Africa that we want. Let me end by reminding all of you that it takes a village to raise a child, that I am my sister's keeper, that out of many, we are one. It's not easy being an African in this global world, because quite often we're met with cynicism and doubt, and those who tell us that Africa does not matter. I would hope we will join hands and speak with one voice as children of one Mother Africa and respond with the timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. To echo President Obama's words, yes, we can. If you would please allow me, we are really living in a very critical time in our history, particularly in our relationship with the United States. With your permission, Honorable President, can we allow Ambassador Brigetti to take 2 minutes to give us some advice on how Africa should look at engaging the United States? Ambassador Brigetti, could you join me, please, sir? And if you have any questions for him, briefly, he will be willing to answer them.
Honorable President, honorable members of Parliament, to my sister, Your Excellency, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I bring you greetings as a private citizen of the United States and also as a proud member of the African diaspora, as the husband of an Ethiopian American, and as a friend of Africa. As the ambassador has noted, these are extraordinary times for our world and also for the relationship between the United States and Africa. It is fitting to have this conversation here in South Africa. For those of us that remember the history of the relationship between the United States and South Africa during the very darkest days of apartheid, you will recall, as I do, that while the position of the government of the United States was not one that was in solidarity with the people of South Africa, the people of the United States were in strong solidarity with the people of South Africa. And as I have shared with Her Excellency, regardless of the particular approaches that the current government of the United States may make, I would strongly encourage all of you to remember that there are millions of us in the United States on a bipartisan basis that treasure our partnership with Africa, that are committed to the development of Africa, and that are looking forward to the continued partnership between our peoples. In conclusion, let me say that in my current position now as Dean of the Elliott School of International Affairs, which is the largest school of foreign affairs in the United States, I became Dean on October 1st, 2015. And in my first 2 hours as Dean, my first public speech, I committed the Elliott School to create a new Institute for African Studies in the heart of Washington, D.C., with the intent for it to be the most important place for the study of Africa, and also for the intent for it to be a convening place to continue this partnership. I offer our good offices as a school to Her Excellency and to all of you as representatives of your country to continue to make this partnership stronger together. Thank you very much.
In conclusion, we have friends in the United States. What may be going on now is going on, that's part of nature, but the United States has a lot of partners, and they're all looking forward to joining hands with us to build the Africa that we want and pave the way for us to continue to build a successful relationship between Africa and the United States. Thank you again for having me.
Merci, Madame.
I thank you, Madame the Ambassador. We will, of course, look into and explore all these possibilities. Now I give the floor to Madame Anja Manjovi, Speaker of the National Assembly of Serbia. Madame, the Speaker is a politician. She had been Deputy Prime Minister, and Member of Parliament, and now she is the Speaker of the Parliament of Serbia. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you. Distinguished Mr. President, honorable members of Parliament, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm deeply honored to be invited to attend the opening ceremony of the fourth ordinary session of the Pan-African Parliament. And I would like to thank you for giving me the privilege to address you today. I fondly remember the successful visit Mr. Dang, President of Pan-African Parliament, recently paid to my country, and profound and friendly messages he conveyed in his speech to the members of the Serbian Parliament. It is my great honor and pleasure to convey to you, honorable representatives of African nations and people here in the friendly South African Republic, most sincere greetings of the people of Serbia. The sincerity and warmth of these greetings are reflections of our common destiny, which we all, as freedom-loving people and nations, had to face through his history. They're also a reflection of our common response to injustice, colonialism, inequality, discrimination, underdevelopment, which was at one point, despite the geographical distance, articulated through the joint visionary decision of our glorious founding fathers and leaders of our nations. I would like to remind you, dear friends, that in September 1961, in Belgrade, the capital of Yugoslavia at the time, and now the capital of the Republic of Serbia, in the edifice of this timbered chamber, I'm honored to preside. The first summit of the non-alignment movement was held. In the same chamber, in the 2011 presence of many high officials from your countries, from your eminent countries, we solemnly marked the 5th anniversary of his historic event. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, my country has firmly stood by Africa throughout the whole modern history. Serbia is the largest successor of former Yugoslavia in the country, which fosters its heritage and values achieved on the international level. In this way, we have actively and consistently supported and assisted the African people in their just fight for national liberation and encourage countries of this glorious continent to take the place in the international arena they rightly deserved. Dear colleagues, challenges and problems we are facing in the modern world have somewhat changed. But our fundamental values and principles we based our cooperation on and the noble vision of our national leaders seem to be valid now more than ever. Peaceful resolution of conflicts, tolerance, equality, right to sustainable development, respect of international legal order, sovereignty, territorial integrity are principles which have to be fundamental for the world of future we all aspire to, if we want to have future at all. As a state whose goal is full membership in the EU, and has the observer states in the African Union, the Republic of Serbia fully supports the vision and the goals of your organization, which are founded in the UN Charter. As a country which unfortunately suffered the effects of political force and breach of international law during the illegal military aggression of NATO in 1999, and the attempt of unilateral secession of its southern province of Kosovo and Metohija, we are determined more than ever to commit to promote consistently observance of the fundamental principles of international relations. On this occasion, I would particularly like to thank the majority of the countries of the African Union, which perceived the problem of unilateral declaration of independence of Kosovo as unacceptable and extremely dangerous precedent which could have immense consequences on global stability. I urge you, dear colleagues, to remain in your position and contribute to preservation of peace and stability in the Southeast Europe. In this way, you will support the efforts of the government of Serbia aimed at peaceful solution to the issue through direct dialogue with the representatives of our Albanian minority. I would particularly like to ask all of you present here today to prevent any attempts made by the self-declared state of Kosovo at becoming a member of any organization such as UNESCO. I would be a potential membership which would pave the way for destruction of valuable cultural heritage that belongs not only to the Serbian, but the people in the whole world. Esteemed colleagues, my country maintains a long tradition of providing assistance to African states in their effort to strengthen economic and other capacities by offering scientific and technical assistance and support to infrastructural projects and by developing cooperation in the field of education. In this very moment, several hundreds of African students are studying at the university in Belgrade owing to the scholarships provided by the government of Serbia within the project The World in Serbia. Along with that, we are pursuing our commitment to peace and stability on the continent by taking part in peacekeeping missions under the UN mandates. Dear colleagues, the Republic of Serbia is strongly committed to continue further promotion of our comprehensive friendly relations and cooperation with the African Union and its member states. The guidelines for further promotion of economic cooperation between Serbia and the African Union have been to a large extent defined the Memorandum of Understanding, which was signed between the government of the Republic of Serbia and the Commission of the African Union in 2015. To the same extent, I expect that the Memorandum of Interparliamentary Cooperation, which will be signed today between the Serbian Parliament and the Pan-African Parliament, will make cooperation between our two institutions more intensive for the good of the people we represent. And here and now, I would like to express my personal commitment and resolve that I will, within my mandate, contribute to the realization of concrete goals in the level of interparliamentary cooperation which we have outlined together. Long live the friendship between the people of Africa and Serbia, and I wish you all every success in your future work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Je voudrais saluer la présidence.
I would like to hail the presence in this session of the Minister Ruth Mukabura, Minister from Uganda, the leader of the opposition. Madam, you are most welcome. The agenda now includes the presentation by Mr. Pedro Reserts, President of the Assembly of the Mediterranean Assembly. I would like to congratulate you on behalf of PAP members for your brilliant election during the latest session of the Mediterranean Parliament. You have the floor, sir.
Honorable President, Excellencies, dear colleagues, illustrious guests, ladies and gentlemen, I will address to you in Portuguese because I believe it is one of the official languages of this Parliament and also because it is the most spoken language on Southern Hemisphere.
First of all, I would like to thank His Excellency, the President Roger Kododang, President of the Pan-African Parliament, for the kind invitation that was addressed to me as the President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean to participate at this very important event. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to represent my assembly in its first participation at an event of the Pan-African Parliament and following the signing of a memorandum of understanding between our two assemblies on the 11th session of the Mediterranean Assembly that took place in Porto, in Portugal, in February. For all of those who are not familiar with our assembly, I can tell you that we are a parliamentary organization with an international nature, with the status of observer at the General Assembly of the UN that offer its 30 members a forum for discussion, for action on security, economy, and human rights. We also share with a lot of members our participation in this Pan-African Parliament. Our geopolitical parliament area goes from Portugal to Mauritania, and it covers all the Mediterranean axis, including Palestine is also a member of this assembly. With our activities, we offer our members some concrete instruments for parliamentary diplomacy to face challenges that exist today. International collaboration is crucial to achieve peace, stability, and economic growth. Allow me to tell you that we very much value our partnership with the Pan-African Parliament, and we want it to become a true collaboration. All members of Mediterranean Assembly in North and South consider the African continent as a whole and as a strategic area for cooperation with the Mediterranean area because of its geographical proximity, because of cultural and economic links. Our region share common problems because of its international characters should be addressed at an international level as well. I'm talking about issues like security, fight against terrorism, countries in transition, violent terrorism, refugees, migrations, and climate changes. And the list is long if we consider unemployment, creation of jobs, corruption, and human rights. The challenges that you face are almost the same that we face, and such challenges are interlinked. So our action should focus in a coherent way these problems at 360 degrees if we want to contribute towards stability in our regions and to the well-being of our populations. We all know that climate change is closely linked to food security and to migration. Environment problems is one of the main causes of mass migrations in Africa and from Africa. And there is an evidence, if we look at Lake Chad, that is losing its levels of water, and we have a lot of people coming out of this area because of the constant violence by Boko Haram. These elements are concrete scourges for populations who have no choice other than migrating, especially towards Mediterranean area, and they are used by terrorist groups that take advantage of their despair. The exodus from Sahel is permanent towards Mediterranean region. In other words, people who migrate from Sahel have no hope of coming back to their areas of origins. This is an example of what is happening in our central regions with refugees coming from Syria who are taking refuge from this conflict. They are escaping a terrible war, and they think that one day they will be able to go back to their areas. But in Sahel, there is no return for migrants. We have to learn with you so that we find solutions and we avoid the tragedy of forced migration. Our concerns that we share with you are terrorism and organized crime. On these issues, we would like to share with you what we have been doing with the members of the Pan-African parliaments. We are very active on this issue, and on a regular basis, we cooperate with the Anti-Terrorism Committee of the UN, which is our partner, to organize a number of specific meetings. The last meeting took place in March and focused on assessing the role of national parliaments to implement the resolutions from the UN on terrorism and to fight foreign terrorism. It was aimed at giving members of parliaments instruments that should be effective to fight forms of terrorism and associated organized crime. But our cooperation with the UN is not limited to this. Our assembly is actively monitoring negotiations on climate change, on the framework convention regarding climate change. So our assembly will organize a regional meeting with the parliamentarians in Ouarzazate in Morocco in October this year. I'm sure that the participation of the Pan-African Parliament will contribute to added value for this event. And Mr. President, I believe that we can consider the presentation of a common position to the conference in Bonn in November. Our assembly is also very active to support economic growth through legislative initiatives. In this regard, our assembly has decided to strengthen its ties with international institutions to bring its experience and bring benefits to access by small and medium enterprises as the drivers of economies in the Mediterranean area. Investments will be the focus of a new parliamentary conference that will be jointly organized with the World Trade Organization for Reconstruction and Development and the World Bank. We will facilitate trade and support investments, which means to stimulate economic growth in general. This event will take place in Casablanca in Morocco on the 5th and 6th July, and we hope that your parliament will be able to actively participate in the debates. In the same way, if you so wish, we are ready to help you in your meetings and learn with your experiences. Finally, at the last General Assembly of the UN, a high official of the UN suggested that the current African population, which estimated at 1.6 billion people, will increase, and at this rate, it will be difficult to ensure its food security and development. And this, in spite of the unique natural resources that this continent has. If this is confirmed, it will require our reflection on how to work jointly. Taking this in consideration, our Assembly hopes that we will continue strengthening our cooperation, possibly with common initiatives on very urgent issues. We should join forces, which is fundamental, to actively fight desertification and ensure sustainable development. I will conclude expressing once more my sincere gratitude for having been invited my assembly to this very important event and to be welcomed at this prestigious event. It was a pleasure to be here, and I wish everybody a very fruitful meeting. Thank you very much.
Obrigado. Chers collègues,
dear colleagues, on your behalf and on my own behalf, I wish to extend my warmest congratulations to His Excellency Mashal Fad Masoulami, the new elected president of the Arab Parliament, and I would like to invite him to give his speech of solidarity. You have the floor, sir. Honorable Rojain Kododang, President of the Pan-African Parliament, honorable members of the Pan-African Parliament, dear participants, good morning to all of you. At the outset, I am pleased to extend my sincere thanks and esteem to Honorable Rojain Kododang, President of the Pan-African Parliament, for his invitation, and to the Republic of South Africa and the President of South Africa for this invitation. Our participation today in the opening session of the fourth ordinary session of the Pan-African Parliament is the result of the deep ties and the common interests between us, and the strong historical and geographical and cultural ties between us. The Arab nation and the African peoples have a common history, and they are linked by geography, culture, civilization, and active interactions. These are strong ties between Arab and African peoples. Half of Arab countries belong to the African continent, and many Arab countries are members of the Arab Parliament and the Pan-African Parliament. We are brought together by the common struggle against colonization in the past and against all attempts of control, domination, and division now. There are common interests between us in a world that is characterized by major challenges, at the forefront of which we have security challenges which endanger the security and the safety of the Arab world and Africa. One of these challenges is the expansion of terrorist organizations, in particular Daesh and Boko Haram, the two terrorist organizations. We are also facing common development challenges, and we are at the moment taking positions to establish a strong strategic partnership and to establish a just world order through the reform of the United Nations systems and the Peace and Security Council, in addition to providing more support to developing countries, particularly the least developed countries. The Arab Parliament is keen on making this relationship, this historic and strategic relationship, more active between Arab nations and African countries. And we want to further develop consultations to be able to coordinate on strategic issues that are of interest to both Arabs and Africans. This issue has been reinforced in the Memorandum of Understanding between the African Parliament and the Pan-African Parliament. This Memorandum of Understanding was adopted 4 years ago. It put in place the foundations of cooperation on common interest issues. This led to a joint meeting by the end of last year in the city of Sharm el-Sheikh in the Arab Republic of Egypt. This meeting produced a common declaration under the title of the African-Arab Strategic Partnership partnership the role of parliamentarians. This document emphasized the role of Arab and African parliamentarians in promoting cooperation in all sectors. This tendency was further reinforced by the decisions made by the Arab League of States. And the aim is to promote cooperation between Africa and Arab countries. We are looking forward to the upcoming 5th African and Arab Summit that will take place in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Honorable President, honorable members of the Pan-African Parliament, dear participants, the ties of brotherhood, proximity, and common destiny that bring together Arabs and Africans, and the long history of struggle and against colonization mean that we have to promote these historic ties. All of this on the basis of a real partnership that consecrates the interdependence between the Arab nation and African countries. We are proud that the Arab nation, in terms of states and people, stood by African states and people and provided support against the colonizers and the destruction of the apartheid system here in South Africa. Allow me, Mr. President, to call on the members of the Pan-African Parliament to express their hail to the late leader, Nelson Mandela, one of the symbols of liberation on the world. He led the people of South Africa to the end of apartheid. The Arab nation today is looking forward to a historic position from Africa in terms of states and people to support it in destroying the apartheid system in occupied Palestine. This system is an implementation of the heinous apartheid system that had already been implemented here in South Africa. The steadfast Palestinian people are suffering from all forms of injustice and displacement, in addition to ethnic and religious discrimination. We call upon the world to support it against what the occupying force, the State of Israel, which has all weapons of mass destruction. Israel is using weapons against civilians, innocent civilians, children and women. We call on the condemnation of all these crimes and this system of apartheid and the violation of the rights of prisoners in Israeli prisons. The Palestinian people and the Arab nation are calling for the establishment of a free, independent Palestinian state on the borders of 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital. This is in line with the principles of international law and the decisions of the United Nations and the Arab Peace Initiative. Honorable President, honorable members of the Pan-African Parliament, dear participants, I have come here today as a representative of the Arab nation. I have a message of love, friendship, peace, consultation, cooperation, and coordination on all major issues that touch on the interests and the dignity of the African and the Arab people. I'm looking forward to implementing this partnership with you, Mr. President, and the members of the Pan-African Parliament from all African states in order to overcome the challenges and eradicate all the hurdles on the way of implementing cooperation between Arab and African nations. Finally, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all of you and to you, President of the Pan-African Parliament, for being keen on our participation in this historic meeting. I wish you full success in your proceedings in this session. I thank you very much for your attention.
Merci, Excellent.
Thank you, Excellency. Dear colleagues, I would like to convey to you the apologies of the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of South Africa, who for very late commitments had to leave this House. He conveyed to you his welcome in the Republic of South Africa. Dear colleagues, as I indicated, our session is opening in a particular context with the presence of two eminent personalities, with His Excellency Roch Marc Christian Kabore, President of Burkina Faso, and our guest of honor, also His Excellency Professor Arthur Mutharika, President of the Republic of Malawi. He's also our guest of honor. Now I would like to adjourn our meeting to revamp your energy and to come back here to pay a tribute and to give a warm welcome to our hosts. The session stands adjourned. It shall resume at 11 hours. Thank you.